because you are more than a cog in a wheel. You always have been.
You always have been. He watches the scene and he says to Steven Spielberg, I watched a dinosaur and I'm extinct.
Welcome back to another episode of Root Notes.
Yeah.
David, I'm excited about this because the plan shifted a little bit. You know, we normally end these episodes with a conversation about detours worth taking.
Yes.
But earlier this afternoon, I was in your office and you said, I want to start with a detour.
I'm going to start with the detour. You can't be that surprised that I want to start with
No, I'm not surprised that you wanted to change the plan at the last minute.
That's right.
Yeah. But so what is this detour that you're so excited about that you want to talk about?
All right. So I don't know if anybody else is Disney Plus. I feel like I'm plugging Disney. Of all the companies that definitely don't need a free plug, it would be Disney. But Disney Plus, when you're on your app, you're on your TV, I don't know if your app suggested to you Light and Magic.
Yes, I saw that at the banner at the top. Right. Yes.
So it got me. What it is a docuseries.
Okay.
And it's about industrial light and magic, which, if you don't know, is the company that was started basically so that George Lucas could have the visual effects required to make Star Wars. Oh. He wanted to make this film. He had written it, but basically nobody could do it. And so he created a company to basically invent the technology and the artistry to make the shots in Star Wars happen.
Really?
Yes. And that film, it's like 1977, blew everybody's minds.
Yeah, still does.
Right. It's still amazing. But those shots had never been done before. And so then you've got this crew of people that have all these skills, and they just start working not only on the other Star Wars films, but just all of these the directors that want special effects, that want visual effects. They start coming to ILM, Industrial Light and Magic. So the docuseries Light and Magic, highly recommend it. Okay. It is a really compelling storytelling approach to these like computer guys and camera women and people creating creatures and just all miniatures. Yeah. I mean, just all of these parts that they bought to build these little.
My kids would be all over this.
Right. Yeah. All these models and things. So I'm in. So I would recommend that. It's a detour worth taking.
Okay.
But there's an episode that I want to talk about a lot.
Oh no! Is this a spoiler?
That's a good point. It's a bit of a spoiler. Oh. But if you want to get the full Light and Magic experience, pause this episode, go watch the docuseries.
And then come back.
And then come back.
Yeah.
After you watch the first season. So the reason it's popping up on our TVs right now is they just released
the second season. I saw that, yeah.
But the end of the first season is all about the making of Jurassic Park. Now, you may not remember, I didn't remember, that Jurassic Park was actually a groundbreaking film. It changed everything. And this last episode of the first season is the story of how Jurassic Park changed everything. And when I was watching it, I could not stop thinking about the moment that we're in public health.
Okay, you got to help me here.
That's not obvious to you?
We just went from, hey, Disney Plus, there's a thing, Industrial Light and Magic, and there's a series you should watch, Jurassic Park, the moment we're in public health.
Do I need to connect some dots?
You're going to have to for me, all right?
So here's the story.
Yeah, bring me back to earth.
So they've been creating all of these visual effects by doing this combination of experimenting with computers. I mean, I didn't know this. There's so much technology that came out of that shop that we use today. Pro Tools came out of ILM.
Did it?
Photoshop.
Yeah.
Came out of ILM.
Wow.
Came out of the minds that were putting that together. Well, anyway, so they're combining computer stuff with miniatures, with new camera technology, with very advanced artistry and stop motion, right? Creating these monster characters that look so realistic.
Yeah.
Things like the original models for Jabba the Hutt, or you remember the Rancor that
they
Luke fights
the pit where they pushed Luke.
right,
Yeah.
in Return of the Jedi, right? So that's the people working in the creature shop.
Okay.
And the mastermind behind all of that is a guy named Phil Tippett. Obviously, there are tons of people working in that.
Right.
But this episode tells us the story of Phil Tippett because Steven Spielberg's making Jurassic Park, comes to ILM partly because he wants Phil Tippett to work on the dinosaurs. It's going to be his magnum opus.
Right. Yeah.
Stop motion dinosaurs where dinosaurs are the movie.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So he's doing all this work on that. Meanwhile, there are a couple of guys working on the computer effects. And they get it in their head. They're like, why couldn't we make computer dinosaurs? Now, nothing like this had ever been tried before. But they start just sort of playing around with it at night. And they get some really good stuff. In fact, they scan in a dinosaur skeleton into the computer and then start animating it. And the guy gets the Tyrannosaurus Rex to run as a skeleton. And he's trying to convince the directors of photography and everything, like, hey, you should consider, instead of doing this model work in the creature shop, we could do this as computer generated image. This is before anybody did CGI, right?
When was this? What year was this?
Like the 96, 97, something like that.
Yeah, okay.
You know, at this point in the visual podcast, we're like, David was wrong. It was 95.
Yeah, we'll check that on you, yeah.
Whatever, it was in the 90s. Nobody had done anything this ambitious before.
Right.
And nobody really wanted to do it. They had the guy from the studio.
I mean, he made Jabba the Hutt.
Right.
So
he's making these dinosaurs.
Okay.
Well, there's some decision makers related to the film that are going to be touring ILM. And this sort of rebellious joker that's working in the CGI shop on some of the other effects, he just has a video of a loop, basically, of a Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton running on a computer in the room as people come by.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so, long story short, they go, that looks amazing.
Yeah.
What are we doing with that? The answer was officially nothing.
Nothing.
Well, that answer shifted. And people started going, well, like, what could we do with it? And of course, there were big questions like, is it just going to look like a bunch of polygons? Because that's what it basically was, right? Is it going to look realistic at all? People are going, there's no way it's going to look as good as what they're doing in the most elite studio with the most elite craftsmen. And then they make a shot. They put the skin on. They make a Tyrannosaurus Rex run. And it looks real and it looks terrifying. And Phil Tippett was like, there's no way they're going to be able to replicate what we can do in a computer. And he watches the scene and he says to Steven Spielberg, I watched a dinosaur and I'm extinct.
Oh, wow.
It was incredible.
Wow.
In a moment, it shifted. Not for just Phil Tippett, for the industry. You can draw a line with Jurassic Park and things were never the same afterwards.
Wow.
For ILM, because their creature shop became tiny part of what they did.
Sure.
Almost non-existent. As all of a sudden, those couple of guys working on CGI in an office became an entire army of folks working on that.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Just like that, I'm extinct. Wow, what a quote.
I'm extinct. So, we're working with people, organizations. We're working with health departments. We're training up future health professionals. In this moment where AI is this burgeoning technology that we've got to sort of make sense of. And it's doing some things and it looks kind of cute. Feeling familiar?
Yeah.
It can do some things, but surely it can't do all of these things. And then before you know it, it has incredible capabilities.
Yeah. I mean, exponential.
So what do you do? Well, the reason that this episode was so powerful to me is what Phil Tippett did. He says the words, "I'm extinct." And then his entire shop is no longer doing it. Like, you have to understand, this decision to move in the direction of CGI meant all the work that he did was now literally trashed.
Man, that's
not a single shot of the film was going to use that work.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
Right? But what he does is he ends up lending that intimate knowledge that he had gained about how dinosaurs should move. Because you remember stop motion, the way you get the shot is you make a little tiny
small
shift.
Change, yeah.
Picture.
Yeah.
Little tiny shift, picture. So nobody had been thinking about how dinosaurs should move shot by shot like Phil Tippett.
Oh.
So all of a sudden he becomes the guy that all of these programmers are coming to, that the director's coming to, that the artistic director is coming to, going, okay, so how do we make this look realistic? How do we make this look believable? Okay, what would the dinosaur do here? We've got him, and from this angle, what would happen next? How could we shoot this so that it doesn't look so stilted or whatever? Things that he's been working on for
a very long time,
his entire career.
Yeah.
But even with this film, and he puts it to use. So he becomes the dinosaur movement director or something like that. And I'm watching this and going, this is it.
Wow. So it's a matter of, he thinks he's extinct. He's not, because the experience, the knowledge that he had gained, the skills that he had, that he thought were not going to be useful, are now extremely helpful just from a strategic standpoint instead of a on the ground, I'm moving the model standpoint.
That's it, right? So here's what you just said, the point that I really wanted to make by bringing up this detour.
Yeah.
This thing that we used to have to do through brute force effort, hands-on, doing every little thing manually.
Sure.
You don't have to do that anymore. But your wisdom is not extinct. It's just re-leveraged by the technology to do something that you wouldn't have been able to do the manual way.
Yeah. Gosh. I mean, I think about just in recent history, in our work, when we're working with health departments and communities doing community health assessments, right? Like this, we've done those recently, and you've done them for years. And we had a conversation as we entered into the last one that we did. You were like, look, the amount of effort it takes to simply create the tables, to format the data in a way that fits the document that is actionable, that goes to decision makers, hours and hours and hours of effort. And now we're able to use AI. We can upload the data into AI and in natural language, say to it, this is what we would like to express.
Right.
And it gives us something very close to, and sometimes better than, what we were creating by hand before.
Exactly. Doesn't it feel like that?
It does feel like that. It does feel like that.
So here's the thing. How are you a Phil Tippett? Because I'm not going to like sugarcoat this.
Yeah.
Some people got retrained and moved over to the CGI team. Some people were Phil Tippetts, and they ended up being able to leverage their wisdom in new ways with the technology. And some people left.
Yeah.
Right? They wanted to be materials people. They didn't want to work on computers. They didn't see a future for them at ILM. So the question is, how are you fitting into this story?
You know, the entire story reminds me of, and I shared this recently with some graduate students, and I'm showing my age, I guess, because
you're a dinosaur too.
I'm a dinosaur too. That's right. You know, the story of John Henry, right? The Still Driving Man.
That's not your age. That story is hundreds of years older than you.
But I'm referencing it as a film, as an animated film.
Oh yeah,
that
I remember
we used
that.
to watch
course.
on a reel-to-reel film strip when we were in elementary school.
Wow.
And I was talking to students about AI, and I made the comment that this is a John Henry situation, right? And they had no idea what I was talking about, and so I had to go off on a tangent.
Tale? They didn't know the
Tall Tales, yeah,
Okay.
I mean Johnny Appleseed, all of that, and they humored me a little bit, right? But
let the old man talk.
You know what's funny about it is the John Henry story. I talked about it. They laughed about sort of me being surprised they don't know it and the age difference.
Right.
And one of our students came back after spring break, and she was like, I asked my dad about this John Henry thing. And he reacted just like you did.
I remember that.
He was like, I remember that's a great story. How have you not seen that?
When we were walking to school.
And so he actually pulled up the music from the song about John Henry, on his phone and the folktale music, and played it for her. So anyway, but it reminds me, right, of sort of this moment where technology can outpace what we can do as humans. And there's some of us, and it's a noble thing, right? Like I want to work harder and faster. I want to fight, right, to make sure that I'm relevant. And that was sort of the John Henry example. It's tragic in many ways.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen this, if you don't know John Henry,
spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. It's only decades old. The century maybe even. The Still Driving Man, when they're building the railroad right out across the country. The new guy comes along with power tools that sort of can drive the machine faster. And so he challenges John Henry to a contest.
Right.
And ultimately John Henry wins, but he dies.
But then dies, yeah.
But because he's exhausted himself.
His heart explodes or whatever.
Right. And so it's a tragic tale. It's a bit of a cautionary tale. And I think that is sort of the dichotomy we're talking about. You could be John Henry or you could be Phil Tippett.
Yeah.
Right.
I found his story as it was framed in this docuseries to be such a powerful model for what we might do in this moment. I'm afraid that too many people in this moment are pretending like the revolution's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And some people are like that in the creature shop. They're like, no, they'll never be able to do what we can do. I don't know how to break it to you. AI is going to be, as good as it is now, it's growing in its capacities every second.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm sure many of our listeners know about sort of the way AI advances. And there are certainly programmers and people working on it around the clock, making it better. But it's making itself better, right? Like it's learning every time we have an interaction with it. It is refining itself to be more accurate, more responsive in a way that is human.
Yeah.
Even. And that is scary for a lot of folks. It's a little scary for me, to be honest.
Well, and we have to appreciate the fact that not only are really, really bright people advancing the technology, but to your point, AI exists such that it can reverse engineer the advances that are made by other AI developers.
That's right.
So that there's sort of this, if anybody can do it, soon they'll all be able to do it.
That's exactly right.
Which means that we've never seen anything like this before. Like when you see IBM and Apple going at it in the early PC wars, they weren't able to very quickly reverse engineer the other person's technology and just incorporate it tomorrow. That's what's happening.
That's what's happening. And I mean, even then, so that they could replicate it, there's a little bit of espionage going on.
It's not even required.
Right.
It's just that one AI system going,
I see you can do that. I bet I can do that.
Let me see. Oh yeah, I got it.
All right. Yeah.
All right. So the truth is we got to face the revolution.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to have our head in the sand. We don't want to be pretending that the future is stop motion when it's never going to be that again.
Yeah.
We want to be. There was in the docuseries, there's a woman who sort of sees the writing on the wall and begins to shift her attention from some of the hands-on manipulation to learning computers.
Mm-hmm.
She's a great story too.
Yeah.
Like, how is it that we can get in on this?
Mm-hmm.
Not that everybody needs to be programmers, or in fact, I would argue it's becoming less important to be that, but learning how to use the new technology to maximum benefit so that when the shift is happening, you're right there.
Yeah.
You're ready. And I think the Phil Tippett story is even more compelling to me because I see all of this analog to what we encourage people to do, which is to allow the advances in the technology to free you up to do what AI cannot do. And what AI cannot do is the relationship building. What AI cannot do is understand how the humans involved in a system might feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is there some future? Please don't write in with all like, oh, AI is going to be able to do. All right, fine, but AI cannot do that now, and won't be able to do that for the foreseeable. And the relationship building, I mean, AI is not taking people out for coffee.
Yeah. Well, not yet.
The other thing, so like maybe you're this woman that makes the transition and becomes a leader and an innovator in using the technology. Maybe your expertise, like Phil Tippett, is the guidance
Mm-hmm.
for how do we leverage this technology in ways that make sense to the humans involved. Because that's basically what he was saying. Okay, you can make this in a computer, but audiences are going to watch this that are human, and this is what they're going to expect to see. And he got that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what our public health professionals can do. And then there's this other thing that even when they were making the prequels or the Phantom Menace and
Star Wars
those
prequels.
new Star Wars,
Yeah.
in almost every
The ones
shot,
we don't talk about.
Stop.
I'm a purist, man. I mean,
You're just Gen X. But those films were almost every shot was CGI.
mm-hmm.
They had full CGI characters.
Oh, I know.
Like all of that. Well, but it all started with pieces of paper and
Sketches.
pencils.
Yeah.
Because you can't get a computer to model something
That doesn't
that
exist.
you haven't imagined.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So again, we're getting back. Who can you be in this transition?
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of models. You can be the woman who's the innovator. You can be Phil Tippett, who uses your wisdom.
Strategist, yeah.
Or you could be the person we're still going to need to define what health looks like in this context, to imagine it, and to say to people who are running computer models, who are running, okay, we need you to do this with AI.
I mean, AI is never going to be able to imagine, right? AI is reflecting back to us the natural world that we have fed it.
Right.
And so that's a great point. And I think most people who are skeptical or fearful of AI need to embrace that it is only reflecting what is, not what could be.
Right.
Even if you ask it what could be, it's only going to give you what it's been fed. You are the source of the future, right? I mean, that's it.
So if you're in public health right now, you could be excited about the fact, like George Lucas was when he gets all the CGI, I can finally have the technology to build the thing that I've imagined, but we didn't have the technology to build.
Oh, that's fantastic.
What can we imagine that wasn't possible before?
That's mind blowing. It really is.
It was a detour we're talking about.
It's definitely a detour we're talking about. And I will say, the thing that I could imagine is the prequels without Jar Jar Binks. I would prefer that to never happen. I don't care. We're going to get some hate, or I'm going to get some hate for that. But that one,
let them know that
we could have erased that sketch.
Well, I mean, the truth is there's going to be experimentation. I think one of the things that that you see with Jar Jar as an example is like, oh, we can do this thing. Should we? I don't know.
No, yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah.
And I think we're going to be in the Wild West in some ways of like, all right, we can do these things now and we're going to experiment a lot.
Well, and I think you also raised the other question that only we can answer, only humans can answer, only folks with expertise and wisdom can answer. Should we do this thing?
Oh,
just because
the AI transition?
Well, no, just whatever it is that AI can do. Should we apply this in this way?
Yeah, no. I mean, that's going to be an interesting question moving forward.
The field of
ethics, if we back up,
yeah.
man, I think we are skating over that because we're sort of early adopters.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people, like we also work in higher education. How many of our colleagues, without naming names, are pretending like this is not going to happen or even railing against it?
Oh, no, yeah.
Right? That
There's no doubt.
shouldn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk ill of higher education, but if there is one global institution that is inertia bound and change resistant, it's higher education. Now, to be fair, we have lots of colleagues who are doing innovative things, who are embracing it, who are trying to spread.
I'm not saying that, but you know as well as I do.
But there are probably as many or more that don't know it, don't like it, don't want to know, ain't going to use it.
Right.
I mean, that's the bottom line.
And I think some of it's denial. Like this isn't going to happen inevitably, right? And then some of it is just like, I don't want to participate in it. Like this is not who I am.
Yeah.
This isn't the career that I've developed.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring that up because higher ed is one, public health is one. It was like a graying workforce, right? A lot of our folks who actually have incredible institutional knowledge that know communities, they've been doing this work. I'm afraid that they're going to look at this and go like, I'm going to get out while the getting's good before this whole transition happens. And we're going to lose a ton if that happens. If those folks don't see themselves as Phil Tippetts in this moment, that they can help orchestrate all of this innovation in ways that make sense with communities, because you know it makes sense because you've been doing it manually for a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You're the person who's going to know how to do this. If you check out, sure, people will come along who can work the technology, but are they going to know how to make it make sense?
Are they going to know how to make it make sense? Are they going to know how it needs to be communicated to various audiences?
I mean, that's the whole.
So I think that's important. You know, one of the things that I think is also a factor is if you've been in a career for a long time, you've seen lots of things come and go, right? And you know, new trends that might be tech. When was the last time you used a Palm Pilot, right? I mean, you know, the next big thing.
I see what you're saying. Right. That doesn't pan out.
That doesn't pan out. So I'm not going to invest in the energy because it's a fad, right?
Right.
And
it's a novelty thing.
And I think that's a mistake right now.
Oh, it's because it's not that.
It's not that. But it is also easy to see how people fall into that trap.
Right. Because AI, quote unquote, is this umbrella term for things that include like, oh, I can make myself into an action figure.
Yeah.
And I can get this to make little cover songs of other songs.
Sure.
And I've got this other app that makes, you know, images, but they have 3 handles on a coffee cup or whatever.
Right.
And so it all kind of feels like a novelty item.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel revolutionary. And if that's where you're at, you're just not understanding where this is all headed.
No, that's right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think about my family, my parents, you know, they get that there's a function now in chat where you can upload a picture of your pet and turn it into a human to see what it looked like.
Right.
Like
which is fun.
It's fun, right? It's fun. It's that they don't think of it any differently as like the cat face filter on Zoom or Instagram or something like that. It's not just that. As a matter of fact, I don't know if most folks realize how integrated AI is into the applications you are currently using and have been using.
That's the thing.
And it's just there.
And it's there now, and it's going to be there in more impactful ways. And you're not even going to be opting in.
Yeah.
It's just a part of it's a part of Excel, and it's a part coaching you through the analysis.
That's exactly right. It's a great example today. A little bit nerdy, a little bit not off topic, but
no, we're talking about Star Wars.
Well, this is more nerdy than Star Wars. So Microsoft has Copilot. Copilot is integrated into every single Microsoft app. And so working today on trying to create an automation for a specific email subject line that goes out. I was working with one of the folks in the dean's office, and it is literally Copilot. Like the integration is a conversation back and forth. There are no drop down boxes. It is creating this for us as we're talking about it.
Right. And
in natural language.
This is what I don't think that everybody fully appreciates. You and I, who are responsible for things like how do we set up a curriculum to train the next generation of public health leaders.
Right.
When we have to look at this and go, how much do we need to teach using stats packages in the future?
That's a real question.
Why? Why though? Because it's not that we're going to need data less.
No.
It's that if I can just use natural language to go, here's the data. Tell me what's important about this. And it gives it back to us in a natural language exchange. That's probably going to be the future.
It's definitely going to be the future for a lot of folks who are not quote unquote statisticians or biostatisticians. Right,
if you're not a data scientist.
Yeah. And now there are lots of reasons that we still need to teach some basics in terms of.
But just stop. When you get into the community, right, to do the work in organizations, most organizations, if you're not a research firm, if you're not working on a research project, right? How many data scientists are working there?
Well,
answer this question.
Okay.
Do they even have a stats package in the building that they have access to?
Oh, probably not.
There you go.
But I do think I want to push back. There's a lot of value in understanding the principles behind good data management, behind collecting data, types of data. And then we're really getting, nerdy now, but those things help you understand the conversation you need to have with AI to set up a data collection process or a form, or to understand the type of data that you're feeding AI, at least right now. I think.
100%. So you and I aren't really disagreeing on that. So if that's what you're talking about and being able to understand like what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah.
But you and I both know that we've spent so many hours with graduate students over the decades going, you click on this, or before that, you type procedures.
Oh, yeah. We're writing code. I mean,
that's over.
I mean, as recently as this past semester teaching biostats.
I mean, it's not over yet, but it's going to be
We have
over.
SPSS lab. Like we have lecture, we have discussion, and then we get into it about let's open up SPSS. Let's walk through the process of cleaning and recoding data and all that sort of stuff. Here's where you click.
Yeah.
And then we record it so they can go back and watch it. Now, the thing that I found extremely beneficial, and I think it's evidence that supports the fact that in very short order, we're not going to be needing this at all, is I created a custom GPT for my students where I uploaded my lectures, uploaded the information from the SPSS labs. And then I said to them, access this and just treat it like it's me. When you have a question, if you don't understand it, ask it, have a conversation with it. And I was blown away by how extremely accurate it was. And I was also a little miffed that it was as accurate as it is. In some cases, I actually went back and looked at some of the stuff they got. I'm like, that's better advice than I would have given you. So
that point aside for a second, anyway, I kind of like the idea that you're extinct. But I mean, public health faculty, other higher ed colleagues, students who are in these classes, stop and think, like, am I being taught stop motion? Am I being taught how to work in a creature shop that's not going to exist for most of my career? Because we're educating people not for where the field's going to be in 15 years when they're just still going to be hitting their stride in their career.
Yeah.
I feel like we're teaching a lot of stop motion.
Yeah. Skate to the puck. That's where we got to go.
Right. So, I mean, I think it helps us all to at least confront the reality.
Yeah.
And go like, okay, how do I angle myself? And if we're responsible for the future by ushering along the future or helping, as we do all the time, helping organizations or communities think about strategy for the future, for God's sakes, we got to tell the truth about what the future is going to look like. Yeah. And it has a place for you.
It does.
But it ain't going to be stop motion.
And I think it's also important. We talk about students. We talk about public health professionals, right? We talk about the field. But anybody can use AI. And I don't think it's going to be that long before the functional aspects and the technical things that you used to, I needed to go to you because you could help me with a factor analysis, right? Like that would be something that you know a lot about.
Right.
And I have, and you've been helpful. You know, I won't have to go to an expert for that. The community won't necessarily have to go to the health department to say, what does this data mean?
Yeah.
What does this information mean?
Right.
They're going to have access to the same things you do in terms of AI. And so
the question,
yeah,
does that only scare you? If you're not scared by that at all, you need to check in with reality too. There's something that's scary about that. But the question for people is, hey, is that only scary to you? Because that should also be exciting.
It should, yeah.
Right? We can imagine how that unleashes a lot of possibilities.
And the creativity.
Right.
I mean, that's what I'm most excited about. Actually, it's a little bit of an aside, but you and I were talking about this today in your office. And, we bemoan the sort of the fact that humanities are not as prevalent in terms of majors as they used to be, in terms of people focusing on the arts, right? And this really could be a revolution.
Absolutely.
That takes away the emphasis on all of these technical things that have occupied so much of our curriculum, so much of our time.
Oh my goodness.
To get back to the beauty in the humanities, the human condition, asking the big questions that occupied us for so long. And to some extent, I think don't occupy us enough now.
Right. Yeah. Because there's going to be a lot of sort of existential questions.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so the fields that have been playing and exploring and working in that space are going to be real useful to us, I think, as we chart a path forward. But the thing is, there are things to worry about, but I think it's so crucial to stop ourselves and go, one, am I being honest about what the future is going to look like?
Right.
And then two, how do I create a role for myself in that?
Yeah. If we had to give some advice to folks out there who may have listened to this and said, okay, I'm willing to give it a shot. Where do they start?
Yeah. So I've thought a lot about that, even in my own work.
Yeah.
And I think we both have. We were sort of early adopters with playing around with the very first versions of the research versions of ChatGPT.
That's right. Yeah.
I would say find the most human aspect of the work. What is it that it's very difficult to imagine ever being replaced by artificial intelligence, by a robot with an incredibly good brain, right? That can learn. What is it? And that, make that the center point of your work.
Yeah.
Make that the center point of your personal sort of trajectory for the skills that you're developing, the way you're positioning yourself in your career, but organizationally.
Yeah.
Assume that we're not going to have to do it all manually. What is the most human aspect of the work? Reorganize ourselves. Center around that for the future.
I think that's super important. And I think that requires folks to walk through their days and their professions and their jobs looking differently.
Oh, man, that's right.
Like it because so much of my time historically has been, I got to get in, I got to answer these emails, I've got to send this report, I've got to pull this data. And so they're task.
Yeah.
The to-do list, right? Very seldom on your to-do list is make a connection, build a relationship, right? Engage a community. That's not on the to-do list, even though at the end of the day, that's what we're supposed to be doing. And so
or spend some time really thinking about the people that disagree with you, the people that push back.
Yeah.
Like try to identify with, okay, what's motivating them?
Yeah.
Like that's worthwhile.
And having the time to think about it is
pulling
valuable.
your head out of the details.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons that people enjoy when we come in to facilitate a strategic planning session.
Right.
Like strategic planning sessions being fun, like that's not a thing. The reason is because we facilitate it in a way that helps people just like, let's just step back for a second. Let's pull your head out of the weeds.
Yeah.
And let's think about like, why are we doing this work?
Right.
And let's build strategy around that. And that's so refreshing to people. And basically what you're saying is like, you don't actually need us standing in front of you to go like, okay, let's spend a little bit of time as a team going like, what's deeply human about our work?
Yeah.
How can we reorganize ourselves to that?
Yeah. It's huge. It really does require a paradigm shift. But I think it's a healthy one. I think that there's not just benefit to the work, there is benefit to the person to be able to walk through your day and your life and say, all of these things that have felt so heavy and burdensome can be reduced and diminished. And now where can I focus? Focus on me, right? Yeah. Like thinking about my own implicit biases, thinking about the way I'm perceived, thinking about the impact that I'm having, the interactions, as you say, the relationships and the pushback and understanding motivations. Mm-hmm. Like, who has time for that?
Yeah.
Well, we may actually have time for that. When I was in graduate school, I was walking across campus with a friend, and she said, "I can't wait to get my PhD. I'm going to be a faculty member, and I just want to sit around and drink coffee and think about stuff." Which is hilarious.
Grand illusion.
Yeah, which is hilarious on this side of it. After 2 decades as a faculty member, I can tell you that is the grand illusion. But I also
do that for a few minutes a day.
A few minutes a day, maybe. Yeah. But it also used to be. I mean, or at least maybe it was always a myth, but I don't think it was.
You don't think so?
I think there were lots of dusty old books and coffee circles on conference room tables that aren't there anymore.
And you're saying like this moment that might feel like the loss of a lot of that is actually precisely because it's saving us from some of the mundanity is like a recovery of that.
Yeah.
And not that it's going to be all like sipping lattes.
No.
But it gives us a chance to think about like, what are we trying to accomplish and how can we orient ourselves to some of the stuff that would make a big difference.
Yeah.
But that we told ourselves we didn't have time for because we were manually doing everything.
Yeah, because you are more than a cog in a wheel. You always have been.
You always have been.
And now we can do more.
All right, that's good stuff. But what's up the road? We've got a very special little episode coming up. So Wes, what are we doing?
Yeah, we do. So back during the pandemic, when we couldn't be in the same place at the same time, we could be outside. And so we would gather with friends around the campfire and talk about life and talk about literature and art and movies and all the fun stuff and just generally goof off, right? It was a lot of fun. We still do that as much as we can. In the next episode, Dr. Adam English, theologian and ethicist and just longtime friend, is going to join us for a very special conversation. And I'm so excited to share it with you guys. So I can't wait. Campfire chat. I can't wait for it.
Check it out.
Yeah. So looking forward to it. So we'll see you up the road.